This is Jay Young Show here. My new beautiful co-host, Jordan Soto. We're
Hello.
and have a great interview today. Marshall Adkins with
And the not so beautiful Marshall Adkins.
I know the two older guys on the end here. Yeah, we'll take that. But with Raymond James, thank you for being on the show today. Appreciate you being in. And
Thank you for inviting me. Thanks for
absolutely. So tell me about what you do, or what overall, what's your goal this year? Let's say.
Yeah. So, well, let's sort of start kind of the beginning. I grew up in an oil patch. Started out as an engineer, actually doing as a frack engineer. Before that was a 4-letter word. Before everyone hated frack, and this was about 40 years ago. And then 30 years ago, I moved to the dark side and became a equity research analyst covering oil field services names, and did that for 25 years. Loved it. We do a lot of macro stuff, a lot of oil and gas stuff, because if you're picking stocks and you don't get oil and gas right, at least directionally, then you're going to miss the stocks, right? So spent a lot of time on that. Still do a lot of that, even though 5 years ago I moved over to run investment banking on the energy side at Raymond James. So when everyone else was laying off people and shutting things down, we said, hey, let's lean into this. Let's hire people and build out a group, because if you starve an industry of capital like we're doing this industry, that will lead to opportunity. And so we built out a big team over the last 3 or 4 years, and we're rocking and rolling now.
So a big team doing what?
Well, investment banking stuff in energy. So a lot of M&A is what our focus is, but Raymond James is also a huge company. We're a 20-something billion dollar company, and we're really good at placing equity. And so we were actually managed 2 of the bigger small cap IPOs in energy last year, TXO and Mach. And so that's really what our strength has been historically, even though we do spend a lot of time on M&A and advice and things like that.
Find you, or how would somebody find you? Or
it's
if they had a bunch of assets.
No.
They come to you and go, "Hey, I got these assets." And,
it's all relationships.
And a plan.
It's all relationships.
I've heard that, though. I've heard that the energy industry, or the oil and gas industry specifically, is ROR. It's return on relationships.
Yeah.
So the more you build your relationships, the better off you'll do. One thing that strikes me, and I'm curious to know, because I've heard this saying that if you want to know the real story, you follow the money.
Right.
So what is the money saying right now about the industry?
Well, the money is saying get the hell out of oil and gas.
What's that though? Like, why?
Well,
But because we need this. Like,
well,
we need oil and gas.
Yeah, we do. But if you listen to the political narrative of the day, you don't need oil and gas. And we're going to be a green world with wind and solar, and everyone smoking, lollipops and unicorns and whatever. It's like, oh, this is all going to work. And all you have to do is just mandate it. Well, no, the physics of it don't work. Or if they do work, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more. And when the average consumer understands that, they're going to say, hey, time out.
Yeah.
I didn't sign up for this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want a green planet like everyone else, but I don't want to, my electric bill is 6 times higher than it is today.
Right. ESG. I've heard a lot about that, but also I thought this was really interesting, as I had gone to another Heart Energy conference, and it was the Energy Capital Conference and A&D Strategies and Opportunities last year. And they were talking about how a lot of investors who had invested in renewable energy actually were starting to pull out, because it was really cost prohibitive. It wasn't maximizing what they were hoping for in a return. What do you say to that?
Well, Jay, your investors kind of want a return. I'm pretty sure they're giving you money to give them more money back at the end of the day. And the whole green wave, the ESG thing, where you're putting money to wind and solar, worked marginally when money was free. But money's not free anymore. And so the returns have been horrific in clean energy.
I see.
And so now it gets back to, wait a minute. Yeah, we wanted to be clean and green and tell our, whoever our investors that we're green, but wait a minute, they kind of really come to us to make money.
Yeah.
So, if you're a pension fund or whatever, you're in the business, your fiduciary responsibility is to make money. Well, guess what? Those names aren't making money.
This is such an interesting, it's such an interesting topic to me, because we have to have traditional oil and gas to have renewable energy, because traditional oil and gas makes the equipment that renewable energy uses. Like you can't have one without the other.
Well, you should go to Washington and become a politician because most of them,
Wow.
or at least half of them, don't understand that fact.
It feels so simple.
Well, you can't, it takes decades and decades to change structurally your consumption of energy. And frankly, there's nothing other than nuclear that's as efficient as hydrocarbons right now
Right.
at generating energy. Well, to grow an economy, you need energy, labor, and capital. You know, and guess what? Labor is more expensive because we, outsourced everything to China over the last 20 years, and that's done. Capital isn't free anymore, so that's going to be more expensive. Oh, and energy, super cheap, as we found two Saudi Arabias of oil and gas here in the United States in the past decade. That's over, right? We got, as well as anyone, we've gotten the easy stuff out of the ground.
Right.
It's going to become harder. Growing in the US is going to become harder, but at the same time that the developed world is starting to see their demand grow, and it's like, okay, let's build a bunch of solar. Oh no, it costs a lot more. Those developing countries are like,
Right.
we
Yeah.
can't afford that. We
Well, and
want
the
to build
repair on
coal.
them is also expensive. So that leads me to a question for both of you guys is, what comes next? What now?
Well, I'll start, but to me, it's real simple. The market is going to figure out the returns are in oil and gas right now. Now that may change down the road, but right now they're in oil and gas. So you'll eventually see a shift back to that side. It will take time.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, oil demand and natural gas demand are going to keep growing for our lifetime, even your lifetime. It's easy to say for us, but you're going to need a lot more oil and gas, and it's going to require a lot of capital going into this industry that's not going into the industry right now. And so that's one of the reasons we ramped up investment banking, because our job's to find the money
Right.
for these guys doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. What do
I
you say to
agree.
that?
I definitely agree. The demand side is going to be there 3 to 5% a year. We're seeing world demand. Actually,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
3 to 5%
Yeah,
a
that's
year,
right.
and it will for a long period of time. Even though you have a lot of different people that, maybe going to electric cars or solar, you're still going to see demand increase. When does that change? I don't know. 20 years. When's our peak oil demand? I think we're still 10, 15 years. I mean, even if I just thought about it from a standpoint of what people are seeing or just articles, right?
Mhm.
Peak oil demand in 10 years, 15 years, well, you're going to continue to see oil going up, which means that we need the supply.
Right.
We don't have the supply. We don't have the supply of the crude that we need in the United States. I mean, we need 20 million barrels a day. We produce 13.
Mm.
We export 3 because of our refineries, and it's just it's in a weird calculation on what's the right numbers and where do we see in the future. And that's why I'm still pro oil, and I will be for a long period of time just because I love the business
Yeah.
and I know that the lower the prices go, the lower the drilling cost goes, and you can stay in there if you don't get too much debt and you have some just
Yeah.
a few key points. But other than that, I mean, I think our supply is definitely there. I'd love to see natural gas. I'd love to know what you think about natural gas and where's that LNG plants? Are they going to start opening up, and are we going to see natural gas prices going up?
So the supply of natural gas can be a lot easier to get than oil, at least here in the United States.
Yeah.
And the oil around the world is going to be more and more expensive over time, right? And before I get to gas, go back to your thought on kind of peak oil demand. I think it'll be a function of prices getting so high to extract that oil 20 years from now that people say, oh, wait a minute, we can do this more cost effectively with nuclear or some other technology
Right.
that drives us that way. Right now, electric vehicles and all that stuff are not more cost efficient, except in China, because it's essentially planned economy that is driving massive overproduction of electric vehicles. So they're cheap there. Okay, great.
Yeah.
But here, people stop buying them. So on the gas side, part of that EV push is you have this massive electrification push going on in everything.
Yeah.
You look at the oil field. Everyone that's presented today here at the conference, all the operating companies say, yeah, we're trying to electrify our stuff. as quickly as possible.
I have a thought on this, and I'm curious because I feel like our power grids are already kind of struggling in some. I mean, in Texas, it was struggling a little bit, right? Like
Well,
our
if
power
you've lived
grids.
in Texas, or really anywhere, you know that, but Texas for sure in February of
Right.
21. So
Right. So
Yeah.
when we're talking about electric vehicles and we're talking about like a lot of electrification that's happening, or like electric
needs, yeah,
needs are occurring, electric vehicles and things like that. Well, something has to power the thing that's powering the thing,
yeah.
right? So then what does that look like, and how does that affect things? Because that again, it all, here's the thing. It seems as though from an outsider, kind of, slight outsider looking in, it feels as though everything kind of comes back to oil and gas. No matter which way you look at it, it always it always comes back to oil and gas,
Yeah.
no matter what avenue you take.
Well, the exclamation point on what you just said is so much of this power is being driven by the AI and the data center demand.
Mhm.
Well, those things don't run. Okay, let's just run whenever we have power.
Right.
Oh no,
It runs all
they
the
are
time.
mandatory 24/7. That's what
It has
people
to
are.
constantly learn. It's like a brain.
Yeah, well, if you're using all wind and solar, which is what Amazon, all these guys are funding wind and solar, but they're out there buying nuclear plants and they're buying gas-fired generators. Because if you need that power around the clock, you better have either a nuclear plant, which we're not building more of, or some type of hydrocarbon-driven power. And from here on, that's going to be gas-driven, not coal-driven.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting thought.
And you're right, the power consumption in the US, if you talk to the power guys, hasn't done squat for the last 15 to 20 years, but it's about to explode for the next decade to 20 years. Going from like 0.5% growth at most
Yeah.
to somewhere between 2.5% and 4% annual growth in the US. Well, that requires transmission lines. It requires a lot of generation. And
Yeah.
a lot of that'll be natural gas, and solar will have its
Yeah.
day, not so much wind, but solar. But at the end of the day, that's a lot more gas consumption. So you need to get out and drill some more, Jay.
Yeah, Jay.
Hey, let me
Need
ask,
you.
can I get down to just if somebody just picked up the show and says, see, always curious about that. Let me ask you this. Where do you guys start? How do I become a public company? Not me, but where does that all start from? Tell me, and I was kind of getting this a minute ago and we kind of got burned off.
Sorry, that was me.
No. I was like, hey, I don't mind asking the question twice. But how does a company become public and how does it grow and how does Raymond James help in that process? I guess.
Well, that's
Billy, Eric,
I happen to know a little bit about that.
Well, good.
And
we just took my buddy Bob Simpson public. I saw him last night at
yeah.
Ranger game and great guy, built his company, 31 billion,
Mm.
31 or 41.
Phenomenal. Well, it was 30 something when he sold XTO.
Yeah, 40
Wow.
billion. I think it was $40 billion.
Could have been.
XTO, and I remember when
It was
they
a lot.
raised the first 300 million.
Yeah.
I was dragging mudlogging trailers down the road near College Station, hooking up some of their stuff. But I got another business that for him and that didn't work out very well. But one of my mistakes, we can talk about it one point. But
Well,
just saying, Cross Timbers 300 million, and they sell for 40 billion to.
wow.
How does a company? And I mean, I know we got a few minutes left. I know we're kind of.
No, I feel like this is the last question. Is
But-
this the last question?
Is this the last question? How do you build a company? I mean, is it
So a
what
lot
if
of
I was
different,
gonna build
lot of
$40
things.
billion company? What would I
A
do?
lot of things to unpack. He didn't start at a $40 billion company, as you point out. We just took his second one public to TXO, to your point, and they were much, much smaller. But you need enough size to where the public could be interested. And generally that's kind of minimum a few hundred million of market cap today. 20 years ago, that would have been less than half that. But
So $200 million, that's in the United States. If I
Correct.
said, hey, I want to bring it on the American Stock
Yeah.
Exchange or
you
New York. Did he go to New York?
he did. But you need that just to get started. And that's a special situation where it's Bob Simpson. He has a great reputation. He's giving investors a phenomenal yield.
ROR, return on relationships.
He's giving guys a great yield with
Yeah.
TXO. And so he had the assets that investors were interested in. It's much easier going public, oddly enough, if you're worth a few billion.
Mm.
But how many private companies are out there that would rather go through the pain of going public for a few billion or sell to whoever,
Right.
Diamondback, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah.
And the answer is, most of the guys that have real size are just merging into others that have, where they can generate synergies and cost savings. But the small guys that are niche players,
Mm.
there's a market for that too.
Hey, the riches are in the niches. That's what I've heard.
We've seen a lot of demand, and those stocks have done incredibly well on a
Yeah.
relative basis.
Yeah, except the ones that have debt, like I mentioned on stage earlier. It's like, man, you can't do it with debt. You need to do it with.
You need to deliver yield to investors, or have a path to growth.
Yeah.
That where and you cannot have any meaningful debt, less than 1x lever, 1x EBITDA levered.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the three key tenets.
Yeah.
If you have that, and management matters. Bob Simpson matters in the case of TXO. And so, you mix all that together and investors say, yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I'll buy that stock.
Oh yeah.
Is he
But I'm-
taking you public next?
No, not yet. Not yet. I
Maybe
wouldn't
in the
mind it, but if I was there thinking if I had
Let me
$200
give you
million,
my card.
if I had $200 million, why would I
Offline.
need you, man? I'm like, if I had $200 million, I don't think I'd do anything.
Yeah.
I did the hay, no, I'm just kidding. But
Well, I think that's all
I
the
can
time
see
that
it.
we have. I think that's a wrap, Jay.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right.
Well, hey, Marshall, I'll tell you what, been very nice having you on.
Yeah.
I
Good
love
to
the
meet you.
perspectives that we have from different people and different
Sure.
ways to look at things, and Raymond James investment banking experience. Appreciate you, and Jordan, thank you for being
Jordan, thank
being
you.
here, and
Pleasure.
You
and
bet.
everybody, thank you for we're at Doug 2024. I know I didn't mention that earlier, but
Super
we're
Doug.
at Super Doug in Fort Worth. Come see us. You better hurry. By the time you listen to this, we're already gone. But
But you could still come if you
yeah,
want.
come back anytime. Get ready for next year. So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.